Item 3 on our agenda, continuing with our inquiry into post-traumatic stress disorder treatment for veterans. I'm very pleased to be able to welcome certainly one very familiar face to us here in Wales and across the UK, Simon Weston, OBE, patron of Talking to Minds. Also with him are Robert Paxman, Chief Executive Officer and founder of Talking to Minds, Ian Pitchford, trainer and therapy provider from Talking to Minds, and Neil Loughborough and Nicholas Cowan, also of Talking to Minds. Welcome to you all, gentlemen. We're very grateful for you attending our evidence session here this morning, and we're also very grateful for the information which you've already provided in written form to the inquiry. We've heard a little bit about your work from the previous witnesses, but it would be helpful if you can give us just an overview in a nutshell, really, about the work of Talking to Minds. I don't know who wants to start. Yes.
Okay. About 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Went through the NHS and a couple of charities for help, and I didn't find the help there that was required. I didn't get well by using those interaction with those forms of therapy. So I went out and basically spent several years trying to find a solution to my problem. And I found a guy called Mick Stott, ex-PT Corps, physical training corps, who developed a program around neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy and hypnosis originally. Very quickly, I lost my symptomology of PTSD, very quickly.
Right.
I was so, if you like, shocked by this that I decided that I was going to train and find out how the whole process works. So over the period of the next couple of years, I then trained with Mick Stott to find out how the system worked. And then we've recently set up and started the whole charitable organisation. So that's been going about 3 years now. So the whole programme has been running for about 6 years. We've now designed further talking therapies specifically for veterans. And it also translates to other groups now because we've gone for the worst case studies, if you like. And what we're doing is getting fantastic results. So we're continuing to do more of it.
Excellent. And as someone who's been a witness on Bob's journey, we met for the first time probably about 3 years ago when he was undergoing his, maybe a little bit longer than that actually. We were doing our master practitioner training together, and even over that time, the difference in him was just staggering, absolutely, colossal, and hence the birth of Talking to Minds.
And obviously we've got two individuals here who've benefited from Talking to Minds and continuing to benefit from the work of Talking to Minds. Do you want to share from your experience just how Talking to Minds have helped you on a personal level?
Hi everyone. I did 23 years in the army, and you've heard or you've got case notes there on the individuals, but mine is not dissimilar. And I went through cognitive behaviour therapy, and I also went through the psychiatrist side of life. Within the armed forces, there is very much this stigma with mental health, and it continues to be a real stigma. And they try to hide it as best they can, that people are suffering. And in fact, I was told to pull my socks up, get on with life, or get kicked out, which is an incredible thing to have to be told when you've witnessed or been involved in things that you have been involved in within the armed forces. When I come to Talking to Minds, after all the other therapies failed, and I was on very high doses of medication, I could only do part-time work, and I went to Talking to Minds. I went on a practitioner's course first, and it was amazing. The changes in me were amazing, but at that time, I stayed on my medication. It was only when I went on the change course, which was specific to me, that I decided that I'd come off all my medication, and I've been clean now. I take no medication whatsoever, other than pain medication for my spinal injury. So I am completely clean of antidepressants for the first time in 21 years.
And how long did it take to make that transition through the treatment process for you?
For me, the first process was 5 days practitioner's course, where I got an insight into what it was about and everything else, and how to deal with different issues. 2 days was a change, but I decided to stay on medication. It was only later on that when I went back on the change course, I decided that I wanted to come off the medication. I wanted to be able to think clearly. I wanted to be able to take in all the learnings and go further forward with what was happening to me. And I come off the medication on the course, on the first day of the course.
Wow.
It took about 4 weeks for the medications to become completely out of my system. and I have no requirement for any medication whatsoever now.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And did you want to add anything, Neil, in terms of your experience?
Yeah. I joined Armed Forces in 1991, probably as a result of this man here, after knowing what he went through in the Falklands. I joined as a medic, had a very good career in the Armed Forces, and when I came out, I was given the choice on the day that I'd made the decision to actually be discharged. I'd been subjected to 3 months of being at the Duchess of Kent Military Hospital, or faced going back to Kosovo the next day. So I obviously went for the medical discharge, because the stigma would have been such that you just would not be able to work in the medical sort of field. So obviously I had to come out of the Armed Forces. When I came out of the Armed Forces, that wasn't just coming out of the Armed Forces. I lost everything from my home to my family to everything. I soon found myself on the street. Now, I had 10 years of treatment through various agencies. Combat Stress were fantastic with me, actually. They gave me a diagnosis for post-traumatic stress disorder, which was confirmed. However, the one comment which stuck in my mind the most was that they thought it would be contradictory and wouldn't help me to actually undergo any further treatment with combat stress, because it would actually worsen my condition. And because I was a medic in the Armed Forces, the actual environment that I found myself in would have been conducive to that which I would be treating a patient in a medical reception station, and therefore it was actually making my condition worse. You know, I thank Combat Stress for the help they gave me. It was just unfortunate that wasn't going to work for me. Early this year, I went on a course with Talking2minds. In the background, I was still under the Trauma Health Service in Lancashire, which is quite a pioneering type thing under a guy called Dave Sanford. I was very apprehensive of whether NLP treatment or whatever Talking2minds was going to work. Very apprehensive. Medical
NLP, sorry.
The NLP techniques they use in Talking2minds.
Neuro-linguistic program.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So I apologise for that.
It's all right. We use lots of abbreviations. It's all right.
I try to steer away from. So, yeah, I was apprehensive before I went on it. I can tell you now that after 4 days of treatment with Talking2minds, it's a bit like coming out of the cinema after watching perhaps your favourite movie star and thinking, oh, fantastic. I'm a bit more cautious than probably most people working from the medical side of things. So I had the Trauma Health Service run DRM assessments in the background. I got a letter in front of me which confirms they now discharged me from their service because they've made considerable improvement and I only have a mild form of post-traumatic stress disorder. Talking2minds have enabled me not just to give me a coping strategy or mechanism, but to deal with my own post-traumatic stress disorder. And the onus is on them actually helping me to deal with it. No money or words can ever sort of, passionately say how thankful I am to these guys, but it's amazing. I had 10 years of, really, really sort of very nice people, all meaning well, and then in 4 days to be turned round. I have the assessments, the DRM assessments. I haven't got a clue what they mean. I don't propose to tell you I know what they mean, but I can tell you one thing. I feel a lot happier. And my son, he said in his words, he said, "Dad, I'm really pleased to have you back." So now I'm a single father with my son, and we're living happily in Longridge near Preston. And I just wish other people get the opportunity like this.
Thank you very much indeed for sharing your stories.